Hello everyone, I'm Jared Inkster, hosting this episode of Kingsborough Focus. Joining us today is the fashion part of the business department, Michael J. Palladino, a seasoned fashion aficionado and educator with a wealth of experiences that span nearly 4 decades. He actively explores the synergy between traditionally unpaired disciplines for new ways to create content that serves his students. Thank you for being here, Michael.
A pleasure, a pleasure.
So I want to dive right in, and I want to ask you, what have you been doing on campus this semester? I hear you're part of a new project. I want to hear a little bit about that.
So based on that wonderful introduction, thank you. I think what I'm trying to do this semester, I use language, words that don't necessarily resonate other than the moment. They're buzzwords, like pepper your resume with this word. But the reality is, what do these words mean?
Right.
Like, how do students take this abstract and make it an application that they can understand? So I came up with this idea of one of the words in the fashion world, which is also a word that is used in other disciplines and businesses, is sustainability. What does that mean? So with my fashion students, what I'm trying to, I see it through the lens of upcycling and repurposing and something with clothing. In other words, we look around the world at these heaps, mountains of discarded clothes, mountains. And if you look at images from Ghana, you see beachfronts in Ghana that are completely awash with clothes. Not like 3 t-shirts, like 1,000 t-shirts.
Right.
It's pretty scary. So what we're doing is we are reclaiming what was discarded, we are reimagining what it could be, and then we are repurposing it. So the 3 R's, that's what the R's stand for. It's a play on reading, writing, and arithmetic, which was that old adage from years ago.
Yeah.
So I think the students have really latched onto this. They love the idea because now they're getting to see what sustainability could look like and how one person can be a catalyst for change. And fashion can be a catalyst for change, which they don't normally get to see. So it's working out really well. We are actually sponsoring events that relate to what we're doing. So when you talk about cross-discipline,
Right, of course.
I feel like we have to reclaim ourselves. We have to reimagine what we could be and then repurpose ourselves in terms of a career path.
Well, it's interesting that you bring up the events and how certain individuals can spark the change themselves or ignite it or the passion in other people, because we actually met at the Gare Duaney event right here on campus, and we actually have some footage of the event that we'll show really briefly.
The reason I came here to tell you guys this story is because our entire world is being rocked by a lot of civil war. In 2015, when I was a Goodwill ambassador, we have over 60 million refugees globally. And then since the Ukraine war happened, now the refugees, that number kind of doubled up to 130 million people. I can't even begin to tell you about internally displaced persons that are living in their countries, and then they have any opportunity. Their children are growing up in a camps within their own country because they don't feel safe. So I go around to tell my story so that you guys can have an idea. The world that we live in is very connected. If somebody's really affected by a war somewhere else, it's going to affect us here too.
And it's interesting now, after having met and witnessing everything he had to say, but to know that you were actually a part of that and the fashion and business side of things. So can you maybe elaborate a little bit more on your groups?
Sure. So what I did was, Gare is a personal friend for many years, and his story really resonates with me, as it would with anyone. You know, a refugee from the South Sudan, a boy soldier. Somehow he found his way forward, and from the ashes, like a phoenix, he rose, and he still rises. And the students that were at the event were very much impacted. So I tried to figure out a way to make it really matter to them. So one of the things that's happening with the South Sudan is it is a fledgling country. It's a country since 2011, so it's the youngest country on the planet. So I have my textile students looking, how can you develop a textile that could act as a sort of a link and a connection to what was lost in the diaspora? How do you bring people back to this central point where they all started? And I said, let's look at textiles as a way to do that, because through the millennia, textiles it's an unwritten language. There are no words, but when you look at a textile, it is talking to you. It is telling you something. So what would we do in textiles that would maybe bring these people that are lost together? How would they find that? And in my 23 class, which is about aesthetics and trends, I said, how would you design something that would reflect a new national pride in being from the South Sudan? How do you bring the South Sudanese together through a national attire? So we're researching what was worn in that part of the world. They have a lot of initiatives started to do exactly that. So if you research, they are on this already. So I don't think we're going to find the solution for them, but I think it's a very good way to bring GARE to them in a very real way, and how they can use fashion beyond just the way they see it, but fashion could be a tool.
Right. 100%.
For reconciliation. You know, that's how I see it.
For many things.
Absolutely.
And like you said, there's constantly clothes being washed up on shores and like polluting.
Yeah, totally. You know, the funny thing is because there's synthetics mixed with the real, you know, with the organic, you can't burn these clothes because the toxic fumes
Most
are
socks
now
are polyester now, right?
Totally. It's ruining the ecosystem in the water.
Right.
It's ruining the ecosystem on the land. People can't use the water for any recreational purposes anymore. They can't burn the clothes. They can't reuse the clothes, and they can't separate the polyester from the cotton because they don't have the machinery or the manpower or the money to do it.
Or it's like 98% polyester in the first place.
Right.
What cotton are you pulling out of there?
And these are clothes that nobody wanted. And the people in Ghana did not ask for these clothes.
To be on their
so now there are
shoulders,
these consortiums in Europe that are fighting this, you know, and also in Africa. They are building these interest groups that are trying to put a halt to this because it's not fair. You know, the problem that we had somehow drifts across the planet and goes to another place. Now it's their problem.
I mean, it's absolutely fascinating to bring it back home and to relate what you're talking about with what is actually going on campus and what you're doing with the 3R program, the 3R shop rather. I was curious, so like we talked about it briefly before the cameras were on, but the students involved, so the clothing being donated, you said there's clothing being donated, it's donation based. Now, and because we're in the fashion and business department, you said you're running it as a store itself, which is absolutely interesting.
So what I use it as the cornerstone of my capstone class.
Gotcha.
So my capstone class on the business side, a lot of them, some of the students are working, some of them are not, some of them have internships, they don't. So this became their internship.
Yeah.
They are responsible for the inventory, the control of the inventory, the marketing of it. They're responsible for manning the shop. We are donating all proceeds to a not-for-profit organization called Bottomless Closet for the first academic year.
That's amazing.
So it really gives them also an experience of paying back to the community, because that Bottomless Closet helps women back on their feet in the workforce. So a few of my students have already put that on their resume.
That's awesome.
And wonderfully, not oddly, their interviewers are picking up on that. Tell me about the 3Rs. What is this about? This looks really amazing. What are you doing? So now the students, they're showing that they are using their academic skills in a very real way to make a difference.
I mean, it's not even just a dual-edged sword. It's a triple-edged sword in a weird way, even though there's only two sides to a sword. You got the point, I guess, but wow,
you're going to really take that to the end, aren't you?
You got the students, the student aspect, so it looks good because it's an after-credit program. I'm basically staying on campus and providing community to the school. They're getting experience, like you said, almost like an internship, and then they're applying what they're learning in school to the real life. That's fascinating. And good to take from the intro a little bit, and the fact that you do like to take two different businesses. The funny thing is, having worked in fashion as well, and retail, you do see that at the end of the day, there's a very, like, fashion is fashion. It's an expression of self. The first time we met, you're like, oh, you're wearing all black, but that's what you feel like today, you know, and you brought that up to me. I do find it interesting how you do take these very seemingly on the surface, completely separate subjects, and then you bring them together, especially in this 3R program, because you say you have your CAP students that are doing the more business side of things, but then you said maybe some people are like turning the fashion into their own things, like cutting up the garments and making their own fashion out of it.
Yeah, they're using their creativity. So
Yeah.
a lot of students that are not in fashion, I have students that are not in the
That
program.
makes sense, of
They're,
course.
you know, the community is involved in this,
Right,
not
that's
just
amazing.
my students. I've got people I've never met before.
That's can you
So
elaborate
it's
on
really,
that? Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, you know, the secret is putting up flyers everywhere.
Yeah.
So I've got
Word of
flyers
mouth.
all over the place and QR codes, and that'll take you right in, so you do what you got to do.
Yeah.
But there are so many students who find themselves studying other things, and they were sort of pushed into that other thing, but they really have this need to be creative. So this offers them that. And we don't have meetings. It's not like that. You sign out something you want to work on. We check in with you. It has to be here by a certain date if you want to walk in the show on the 30th, which we will be a part of the fashion show on May 30th.
Speaking of that, we actually have a flyer. Let's put that up for a minute, and then we can talk about it a little bit. So the flyer for the show here is going to take place on, when you say the 30th?
May 30th.
So we saw the flyer from the 30th. If they want to come check out the program, students can do so that day, obviously, at the fashion show?
Yeah, the day of the fashion show, we'll open the show. So we start the show, and there's a program, and the models will each have a number, and the number reflects the look, and if somebody's interested in donating for that particular piece, they can do it at the end of the show. So we are the first part, and then there are the design students that they do their
They're the
part,
fashion
and that's
show,
the
the
major
core,
thrust of
right.
it. So,
But if someone doesn't catch the show on the 30th, we do have a shop.
so we have a shop. Yeah, you can come up to the shop. Right now, we are open on Mondays and Thursdays from 11:30 to 2:30.
All right, I think we also have a picture of the store we could put up if we'd like to put that up, and you could show what everybody was actually talking about. So you have it's on the 3rd floor of the M building.
When you walk in, there is it's a straight run. On the right side, you will see a resource center. So we had recently gotten a large donation of fashion books from
Oh, that's amazing. That's
New York
incredible.
fashion designer Yo Lee. So Yo Lee gave us many of her design books. I brought in some of mine from home. So if students are looking for inspiration or whatever, they're there. On that shelf also, we have some things for sale. So it's a curated sort of group of beautiful things that also didn't find their way into a loving home.
Right, of
you
course,
know?
yeah.
So they also end up in the garbage heap, but it's curated, so it's very special pieces that are sold, you know, priced to sell. But then as you move around against the wall, there's a rack of clothes that are completed, that are all numbered and cataloged, and they are up for donations. And then there's a rack of clothes that are what's coming. So these are the donations. And then we have materials on shelves around. We have an ironing board, an iron, needles and threads. You know, eventually it'll get bigger. This is only the first full year. This is the second semester.
I think it's a genius idea because in the last couple of years, especially maybe the last decade, thrifting has made such a huge comeback.
Yeah, no, indeed, because, you know, fashion, you know, especially because of fast fashion,
Yeah.
we are killing
fast fashion,
ourselves.
yeah.
We're killing ourselves. So, I just spoke to a student before I came here, and she was saying before she started taking my classes, she had never thought about these words before. She hears them, but she said, now I know what they mean. And she was in the 3R shop with me, and she said, this is letting me articulate what I never could. I didn't know the words. Like I knew sustainability. Yeah, you could use it in a sentence, but what does it mean?
Yeah, no, 100%. And then, I mean, to the same extent, what I was trying to maybe go on a little further was that there's this sense of small town community because you're doing it here as opposed to like a Buffalo Exchange, which is going to the Salvation Armies and then up pricing like as it was a retail price. So this is really real. This is very authentic.
Yeah, no, and we try to keep the prices reasonable because nothing's costing us. The only thing that's costing us is our time. The clothes are donated. You know, if you're very smart, you can pick up these embellishments or whatever really reasonably. And I look for cast-offs constantly.
Make the best of it. Yeah.
I'm a dumpster diver. There it is. I said it. No, but you know, you'd be surprised what people throw away.
Okay.
You'd really be surprised.
As far as time is concerned, that's all we have for today. We would like to thank Michael for his time. On the behalf of the Kingsborough community, we look forward to his future contributions to the fashion and business programs and all the benefits of his years of experience and what they'll bring to his students. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you guys for joining us for a very special episode of Kingsborough Focus.